Hi Jeff, and welcome back.
Thank you, it's nice to be back.
And hello to all you, thank you for coming here for our little chat today.
Hello,
and
nice
today,
to see you.
And today everybody is on the same time zone, so we can actually begin on time. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it turns out that the thing is, I lost my phone in Brazil, and so I've got a new phone, and this is the first time I've been outside of the country with a new phone. Now you'd expect, my expected behaviour of a smartphone is when you get to a new country, it picks up the local time and it adjusts your watch. But on this stupid phone, for some reason, that functionality is a switch you have to turn on. It wasn't turned on by default. Who the hell doesn't want that on by default? Anyway, I'm sorry, that's why I was late yesterday.
And so, yesterday we were talking with Jeff, with Charles about Llamasoft, about games, about all kind of fantastic things. Now we are talking about even more fantastic things, about the Netflix series Black Mirror. How many have seen Black Mirror? Okay, how many have seen the Bandersnatch episode? Quite many. That's awesome because I haven't seen it, so I have no clue what I'm talking about. But I guess we will manage because he will be the one doing most of the talking. I was supposed to watch it on Thursday, but there was an emergency, so no chance.
And also, it takes quite a while to watch it because it's an interactive episode with multiple story branches. You really need to spend 5 or 6 hours going through all the different bits and pieces before you've seen everything.
But this Bandersnatch episode is quite interesting in a way that it has a lot of real world background, real roots, and for us nerds, it gives gaming nerds, for fans of Yak, it gives us lots of fantastic moments to see, like this guy back there who looks quite like somebody we know. But the actual history, the Bandersnatch itself, it was supposed to be a game by Imagine, a British software house in the early 80s. And let's go back to the roots. Let's talk about Imagine. Imagine, it's not the game, it's not the software house that was part of Ocean. This was before Ocean, the time when there was this rich kids of UK gaming industry. Can you tell us about your connections, your experiences, memories about Imagine?
Well, I think Imagine represented the beginning of the transition from the games industry being just like a bunch of us nerds in our bedrooms to what it would eventually become, like a huge, a massive industry. Imagine were the first company really to try and become, or to dominate the software scene, I suppose. And they did it largely through smoke and mirrors. I mean, they had some good programmers, and they had some reasonable titles. I mean, some of their early titles were okay, some of them were a bit shit, it must be said. But they had wonderful marketing, they had absolutely spectacular artwork for their cover artwork, and it was a step in a direction which I remember I wasn't particularly happy with, because I remember thinking when this happens, it's going to change everything away from the kind of mad, weird, creative, just nerds in their bedroom situation it was when I started, into something a bit more commercial, a bit more money-oriented, if you like. And Imagine was or they attempted to be the first step on that way, and they almost succeeded, but then they failed in the end.
And the end of Imagine was quite spectacular, but let's not get there just yet. You said Imagine had some reasonable games, and then they had these mega games.
Yes, I mean they'd been producing games for, I can't remember, about a year or so, and then they had this advertising campaign where they said they had the best programmers in the world, and they were going to produce these 2 fantastic games that were called Bandersnatch and Cyclops, and there wasn't really a lot of substance behind this. I mean, they said they started these games and they spent a lot of money just putting adverts in all the computer press saying, oh, here are programmers, they're working really hard, this is how much Coca-Cola they've consumed in the last few weeks, and these games are going to be the most amazing things you've ever seen, but there was never any screenshots, and there was never any demos, and there was never any action, and so they put forth this idea that they were producing something amazing, and yet what they were trying to do I don't think would have worked in the actual environment, because they wanted to charge a hell of a lot of money for these games. They wanted to charge like £60 for each of these games, and £60 back in 1984, wherever this was an awful lot of money.
Like if most games were selling like under 20, 15, 20 quid.
Yeah, I mean back then, I mean $9.99 would have been a decent price for a game. I mean $7.99. Budget games were £3. I mean, I really wish to this day I could sell a game on iOS for £3, and you just can't. But back then, that was the price of a budget game. So yeah, 60 quid was a big ask.
So these guys really imagine they were kind of, I don't know if they were really rolling in money, but the founders of the company, they did actually buy sports cars before they had driving licenses.
Well, they bought sports cars. They rented sports cars. They wanted to put forth this facade of this very successful company who had lots of money, and their programmers were driving Ferraris and things like that. And this was the image of them which got bandied around in the newspapers at the time, and it was great press for them. But unfortunately, it wasn't actually real. Like I said, the cars were rented, and they were okay, but the games weren't that brilliant. And at one point, they actually tried to recruit me. They got me up to their offices in Liverpool and showed me round, and I was like, actually, no, I'd rather be doing my own thing than joining in with this lot, because it just didn't feel like what I wanted to do. It didn't feel right.
Oh, by the way, completely unrelated, there's a guy who founded one of the first Finnish software importing houses. He's sending you probably don't remember him. He's called Petri Lehmuskoski. Many here know probably his name. He was your distributor in Finland, and he's sending hello.
Oh right, oh yes, well, hello to him. Yes, we were quite lucky in that even though we were quite a small software house, we did achieve fairly reasonable distribution in the early days, and it's thanks to guys like that.
Yeah, he met you, he remembers meeting you in some trade show in UK 84, 85 something.
Oh god, we went to so many trade shows back then. It was they all blur into one. I mean, I really enjoyed doing those shows because it was nice meeting the public who played the games, and nice meeting the distributors, and also there was an awful lot of drinking went on, it must be said.
Okay, and then there were one of these Imagine's mega games. It was called Bandersnatch. Surprise! So Bandersnatch. Do you remember anything about Bandersnatch in the time?
I remember Bandersnatch was the Spectrum game. There were two games, Bandersnatch and Cyclops. Cyclops was the Commodore 64 game, and I don't think there's been much at all found out about what Cyclops was. But Bandersnatch actually survived the fall of Imagine, and it was released on I believe the QL and the Atari ST. I don't know if they did an Amiga version as well. And it was this weird kind of adventure game with it was one of these. It was a time when the mouse was a very new control method, and some people thought that you had to use the mouse for everything in a game. And so it was released as it wasn't called Bandersnatch. It was called Braticus. That's it, Braticus. And you can find this game and you can play it now. And you have to. The first time I tried to play Braticus, I spent 5 minutes trying to get through the first door. That's how well the mouse controls worked. And also the graphics were a bit ugly. They were just done in this 4-color mode. They didn't use a 16-color mode. They wanted to go to a medium res 4-color on the ST, which it didn't really work. So I don't know if it would have been a better game on the Spectrum. Maybe it would have been, but the thing that came out wasn't that good. And
then the Imagine company, it folded out in quite spectacular and very well documented way. Yep. I can't hear you.
There is a documentary.
Yeah. So there is actually a documentary of that. There was BBC crew filming it right at the moment when the crash happened. You are the best one to tell about that.
Yeah, the documentary is called Commercial Breaks, and you can actually see it on. It's all on YouTube, and I recommend it. It's a fantastic watch. It tracks Imagine and Ocean during a period coming up to, I can't remember which Christmas it was, but one of the Christmases, 84 or 85, and you can see Imagine implode in real time. There comes a point where they go to try and get in their own offices and they've been locked out by the bailiffs and nobody knows what's going on and it's all just falling apart round their ears. And okay, probably it's a bit sad, but it's also quite funny. So I would heartily recommend it's called Commercial Breaks. Look up Commercial Breaks Imagine on YouTube, and it also gives a great insight into the kind of culture that Charlie Brooker was invoking when he did the Bandersnatch show for Black Mirror. I mean, it could have been the same place when you look at it.
So we now make a little time jump of 40 years, and get to the moment when this Black Mirror Bandersnatch episode film was being born. There was somehow there was these connections you made with people who knew you, who you had talked with, and somehow they then contacted you. They got the idea that Jeff will be great for this.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back quite a way, really. I mean, Charlie Brooker, before he did Black Mirror, that everybody knows him for, he used to do game reviews for the Guardian newspaper. He did a section called Games Wipe, and his reviews were always kind of, they had a particular sharp wit that was very appealing, and I liked those. And he also did on TV, he did a series called News Wipe, where it was a satirical look at the stupid crap that was going on in politics and in the UK sort of scene. And I always used to look at. He also did an end of the year review every year, that would be called something like 2014 Wipe, and these things were always very well observed, always kind of dark humour, satirical, good stuff to watch. And he also did a documentary back in, I think, 2012 about the history of video games, or specifically the history of video games in the UK, I think it was. And I was actually asked to do a piece for that. I went down to London and did a small piece to camera for him about that. I remember they told me that I was in the studio just after Peter Molyneux had been there. So yeah, I mean, I knew Charlie Brooker. I knew of him, and I knew he was interested in video games. And so when he came out with Black Mirror, I mean, we absolutely loved Black Mirror. Whenever there was a new series of Black Mirror came out, Giles and I would be absolutely gagging to, when's the release date going to be? We're going to watch every episode. It's fantastic stuff. We really, really enjoyed it. So then, out of the blue, beginning of last year, I got an email saying, do you want to be in Black Mirror? I'm like, hell yes. Do I want to be in Black Mirror? Yes. So it's like, yes, please, let me be in Black Mirror. What do I have to do?
So, yeah, well, just how did it went on after that? Were you introduced to your character beforehand?
I was never privy to the full plot. I was only told a bit about my character, and I was told about the scenes that I had to be in, which were very brief, and probably mercifully so, because I've got absolutely no training in acting, and I'm a terrible actor, and I'm rubbish. So it's a good idea that my part was very small. And I had to go down to the famous Elstree Studios no, not Elstree. It's oh God, my mind's gone blank now. There, Ealing Studios, not Elstree. Ealing Studios. I had to go down there, and they told me about my character, and I spent the first sort of half day I was there trying on more clothes than I'd probably worn in the previous 5 years in order to flesh out my character. My character was this guy. He was some 1950s some 1950s guy who had been into the idea of interactive fiction and had eventually gone mad and murdered his wife. And I rather like the idea of being a villain. So you know, they fitted me out with this stuff. And then the first day I had to do effectively stills photography, because one of the props in the actual show is a book about the life of this Jerome F. Davies. In this book there's lots of photographs of Jerome working at his easel, and the worst thing about that was they wanted Jerome to smoke. Now I am a smoker, so I thought this is fine, you know, give me 20 Bensons or a couple of spliffs and I'll be happy. But no, you have to smoke these terrible herbal cigarettes, because there are rules that you can't smoke real cigarettes on set. So these herbal cigarettes tasted dreadful, they were awful, and I had to smoke loads of them because they wanted me in clouds of smoke. It was awful. And they also took some Super 8 like film of me, which was supposed to be some part of a documentary about my character that would show up in the actual movie of Bandersnatch. And that was I believe at the end of April that year. The last bit was done, my actual action was done at the beginning of May. And I had to go down and learn how to murder somebody, which was quite interesting. I had somebody who told me that, you know, normally if you think of somebody stabbing somebody, you think of like this. Somebody said, no, real psychopaths don't stab like this, they stab like this. So stab like this. And I got to go on the set and see what the actual set of one of these things is like. Now you see it on TV, and it looks like a real house, a real room, whatever. It's actually constructed in this massive hangar, and it's all artificial. The set dressing is unbelievably detailed. I mean, I was wandering around the set just with my eyes wide, seeing the detail they're putting into these things. And but it's all artificial. It's all this, like, wooden walls with lights outside that shine in to give exactly the right impression of the light there. And the tech they've got there is unbelievable. Cameras that look like spaceships, like massive crew outside, and just the tech involved with it must cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of quid. So to actually see that firsthand and have a small part in it was really illuminating, and I was really grateful to see how this was made from the inside out, really. I mean, if you watch it on TV, you'd never know that this stuff goes on. And being as I'd never been involved in acting or in film production or anything like that, it was a real eye-opener to see that, and an insight into a world I never thought I'd see. It was fantastic.
How often did you travel to the studios?
It was only on 2 occasions, really. It was the one occasion at the end of April. I went down, and it was quite funny actually, because they insisted on sending a car to the hotel to pick me up. I'm like, okay, maybe the studio's in a difficult place, maybe it's miles away, I don't know. They booked me this nice hotel in London, so I get out the first morning, I wait outside for my car, this car comes and picks me up, and it drives me about like 500 metres up the road, and then turns right, and then we're at the gates of the studio. Okay. And I guess it was more about the security, really. The security around it is all very, very high, and so that only let into the studio certain people in certain cars. You couldn't just walk up and go in. But I mean, coming home, I could get out, literally come out of the studio, walk 5 minutes and be back in the hotel. It really wasn't that far away. And so I went again at the beginning of May. I think the hardest part of it all was because I was tremendously excited by all this. I mean, this is fantastic, but I could not say a word to anybody about it. And so I was tweeting, I was doing my train tweets on the way up and down there, and I'm talking about going to Ealing Broadway, but I could not mention for a moment why I was going to Ealing Broadway. And there was various speculation. I remember around my tweets people thought I was doing a deal with Sega, or I was doing a deal with some video game company, and I had to be completely stum about it until it finally came out. I think it's December 29th when it finally came out, and I could finally say, actually, there it is, there I am.
If you follow Jeff's Twitter account, you will see that whenever he is traveling, there is some really awesome Jeff is in train tweets, those are really awesome, and I think I did see some of those when you was traveling to the studios and back. And yeah, Giles.
Don't forget about the AI.
AI, yeah. So, but really, the speculation and this. There is so much comedy seeing when he is traveling, because he is reporting everything he sees and every place where he is in. And there is this AI. Somebody coded an AI, Twitter AI. Or would you like to tell about it?
Now the funny fact is that basically he writes all this stuff in a particular way, which is really humorous. And someone actually created an AI program to emulate his writing style, and they actually managed to do it really, really good. It's called Jeff Minter's on a Train, and it's awesome because you read it, it's like, this is really Jeff Minter on a train.
Well, yeah, it's Jeff Minter on a train if I'd taken a bunch of acid, I think, really.
Okay, so about the filming itself, because the Bandersnatch episode, it's really unique in a way because it's interactive. There are many possible routes, choices you can do. What was it like to film that kind of episode where you act in so many different ways?
Well, I mean, when they first told me what they were trying to do, I was absolutely blown away. I thought, this is crazy. How the hell is this going to work? I mean, that was the big secret. That's why we couldn't talk about anything, because nobody tried to do this kind of interactive movie at all. And I was thinking, how the hell are they going to make this fit together? I mean, my part, mercifully, was quite small, so I had to do my stabbing maybe 2 or 3 times from different angles. But I remember they were talking, even back then, they said this is one of the most ambitious things they'd ever tried to do, and I think that's probably why that series of Black Mirror ended up being broken up. I mean, originally I think Bandersnatch was planned to be like number 2 in a normal series of 6 episodes, and that series actually ended up with Bandersnatch coming out first, and then I think we had 3 episodes a few months later. I think the actual technical stuff behind Bandersnatch was such a huge leap that they had to spend a lot of time getting it together. But when it came out, I mean, we watched it on Netflix. I was amazed how seamless it was and how well it worked. And even though my part was tiny, I was very amused when people I started hearing these reports saying, I was watching this thing and this guy, he looked exactly like Jeff Minter. And I was actually, it was me.
Is there anything else you would like to tell about the filming itself?
Only that I would say, I mean, it's not very glamorous. The process of filming, you think it would be glamorous. It actually involves a large amount of waiting. You spend most of your time waiting until they're ready for you, and then you go on and you do your thing, and you maybe do your thing 2 or 3 times, and then you're waiting again. I think the proportion of waiting to actually doing was probably about 90% to 10%. And it isn't glamorous, it's hard work. The lights are very hot. It's a bit stressful because I'm not an actor, and you've got to get this stuff right. Even something as simple as murdering somebody, you've got to get right. But yeah, if you think it's a glamorous, dynamic kind of thing, it's not really. It's 90% waiting and 10% panic, I think.
Just like in the army. So at one point, the series, the episode was done. It was and between the finalizing and publishing, you had to be really quiet about it, not being able to tell anybody about it. That must have been really, really hard.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was busted to tell everybody, but I didn't want to spoil it. I mean, I knew it was going to be a big thing. I knew it was going to be a big episode for them. So I'm a big fan of Black Mirror, so there was absolutely no way I would do anything to spoil the surprise. So yeah, I kept my lip zipped and just waited till it came out. And it actually was quite a surprise when it came out. I didn't know it was coming out last Christmas, and so when it came out, I was like, yeah, finally, I could admit my part in this villainy.
And as you mentioned a moment ago, when it came out, people started speculating that looks kind of like Jeff Minter. How can it be?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not my normal look. Actually, that was the first time I'd had a haircut for probably about 2 decades. I've never let anybody else near my hair, but the makeup wanted to trim me off. I thought, well, for Charlie Brooker, I'll do it.
Don't forget to mention 1 second the story about, no, stop that, he's not glamorous. Remember, when you were into the makeup department?
Oh, yeah. I was in makeup, and they were doing me up, and they had various ideas as to what kind of look I was going to have and what kind of makeup they wanted to put on me. And somebody came by at one point and said, "No, don't do that to him. He's not glamorous. Don't make him glamorous." No, I was all right with that. That's fair enough.
So the reactions from fans, from the general public, the audience, how was it?
No, it was really good. I mean, what I really liked was that people were really surprised to see. I mean, I heard people saying that they were watching with their girlfriend or whatever, and suddenly going, "Bloody hell, that looks just like Jeff." And yeah, I mean, I haven't had many brushes with celebrity, but this is probably about as close as I've come. I think the previous closest I've come was I once signed an autograph for Rick Wakeman's son. That's about as close as I've come.
You also going a little bit to different direction. You did this YouTube show with Ashens.
Oh yeah, I don't know if any of you know Ashens, but he does YouTube shows that are often themed around retro tech and tat. And he did a film a couple of years ago called The Quest for the Game Child, which was about looking for this weird Game Boy clone. And he's doing a new film at the moment which is called The Polybius Heist. And it's nothing to do with my Polybius, it's more about the original legend of Polybius. But given that I have done a game called Polybius fairly recently, he thought it would be quite fun to have me in a cameo role in that. So if you look out for that film, then keep an eye out, and you may spot me in there as well.
And when the movie episode came out, how long did it take for you to watch all the possible outcomes?
I think we sat there for about, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours, and I don't think we've seen everything. I still haven't seen myself do the stabbing, to be honest with you. There's a particular route you've got to take, and you've got to be lucky to get the right branch. And we watched it quite a lot, and I haven't seen my own stabbing yet, but I know it's in there. Enough people have seen it to know it's there.
It's a bit tricky because they structured it in a way where basically, let's say, if you complete a certain set of routes in one way, you get to a certain type of endings, but you have to replay the same routes, and there's something change. I mean, you get new choices at a different time. So even if you play the route in one way, you say, okay, I've done this, but if you do it the second time, you get to a point where you get different choices. So it's a little bit tricky.
So it's kind of really all-time adventure game with, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the whole theme of the show is that the show itself is kind of the structure of the game, which is the theme of the show. I mean, there is a game. Obviously, it's not the same as the original Bandersnatch. It's something they've made up. But the idea of the game in the show is that there is this branching set of decisions, and yet that's what you're actually doing when you're watching it.
And actually, this is a really, really messed up part. The game that you see in the movie, they actually made it. It does exist. They managed to hit in there are ways you can get it, but I can't remember how. But the game actually exists and it runs.
And that's the beautiful thing. There was this imaging company back then, a Bandersnatch game back then, a Bandersnatch TV show, a new Bandersnatch game. They made it in such perfect way.
Yeah, I mean, finally they kind of achieved what Imagine were trying to do, I suppose.
What's your absolutely favorite moment from the whole thing, from whole Bandersnatch thing?
stabbing. I think I really enjoyed the stabbing. I enjoyed it was fun being a villain. It was fun being crazy and being taught how to stab properly. And it was all done with the exploding blood packets they put on. It was fantastic. It was lovely being a villain.
Beautiful. I think we can take some questions or comments if anybody in the audience wants to have some say. Anybody? Somebody? Nobody?
No, so I never seem to provoke any questions. I must be very easy to understand.
Okay, nobody has nothing to ask or comment.
I should ask that this isn't my only brush with celebrity. I don't know if people know about Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails. Trent Reznor is a big fan of our game Polybius, and he did a music video in 2017 when shortly after Polybius came out. He did a track called Less Than, and if you actually look up the music video for that on YouTube, it's basically somebody playing Polybius.
So go to YouTube and check out that music video and you will see some of their work.
And also one of the things, I won't say I regret it because we ended up having a really good time. I'd actually booked up a little holiday for me and Giles. At that point we were going to go up to mid Wales and just go and chill out and spend a bit of time. And the day before we were due to go, I got a PM from Trent Reznor saying, oh, by the way, I'm playing the Albert Hall tomorrow night. If you want to come down and be my guest, then you'd be most welcome. And I was like, oh, bloody hell. And in the end I passed it up because we needed a bit of chill out time, but having to say no to a personal invitation from Trent Reznor to one of his concerts was a bit harsh.
Oh, that would have been great, but did you need the chill out time as well? Did you need the chill out time as well? Because you seem a little bit sad about missing it. You seem a little bit sad about missing the concert. No, you were happy.
I think it was unfortunate because we really planned this thing. I mean, we would have really made quite some people upset if we didn't take it because it was booked this place in Wales, it was all organized. If you would have told us like a couple of days before, we could have done something, but they came out like just the same day as like, no, we can't really do anything.
It was literally the night before, but he did say at some point he might be interested in doing a collaboration with me, which I would actually be quite into because I like his music and I think it would go well with some of the stuff that we do. So who knows, maybe one day we might work with him and that would be good.
That would be beautiful. Okay. So, last chance, any questions, any comments, there's some, a moment.
Hello, what platform are you thinking to develop next for? A game? Or anything?
At the moment, we're kind of in a kind of a crossroads. Obviously, we develop on PS4, we develop on PC, but the way things are going, it looks like a lot of gaming is moving towards this idea of streaming games from servers elsewhere, and the impact that has on like the preservability, accessibility. If you haven't got access to these streaming platforms, you wouldn't be able to get yourself distributed. And the preservation of video games, once these platforms go offline for whatever reason, you'll never be able to play those games again. I'm actually thinking of maybe going back and doing some old school games, maybe doing another Commodore 64 game. Who knows? That might be a thing to do.
That's really something we talked about yesterday, and the idea of them doing a Kickstarter, for example, for a C64 game, I think that would go through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit nervous about Kickstarter. It's never really been my thing, but the way things are going, I don't know, something has to change. Maybe our way of doing things has to change. And I kind of like the idea of doing something that is still accessible, that will never go away because the servers go away. and also to return to something I love. I mean, I love the Commodore 64. It was so much better than the ZX Spectrum. So to work on that again would be a real pleasure.
You know what happens if you do that? Because if he does that, then I'm going to do something else.
Okay, anybody else?
Not a particularly imaginative question, but which platform was your favorite to develop for?
Oh, now there's a choice. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I enjoy the modern platforms because they can do so much stuff. But in terms of being interesting to code, the most interesting platform I've ever programmed on is probably the Nuon, which is also the least successful. But from an assembly language point of view, it was just fantastically interesting. I enjoyed the Jaguar because, again, it was brand new, and I like things that are a bit tricky. I don't like things that are too easy. I mean, these days everything is piss easy. You want a million sprites, have a million sprites. You want a million polygons, have a million polygons. Z buffering, whatever you like. It's piss easy. I like stuff that's we really have to sweat a bit to get the best out of it. So I think my favourite platforms. I also love the ST because it was so much better than the Amiga. Oh! No, I don't mean that, but I was an ST guy, and I never really got the best out of the Amiga, I must admit.
Do you like shaders?
Oh, I love shaders. Shaders are fantastic. They are the best part of modern coding is shader coding. It's lovely, and it's amazing what you can do. I love that. I love the inherent parallelism and stuff you can do in shaders. It's kind of similar to what I was doing in Assembler on the Nuon. So yeah, shaders are great.
Cool. Any more? One more question, yes.
Hi, I game on Linux for many years now. How do you feel about Linux as a gaming platform, both in terms of technology and market share and Steam and Wine and Proton and all these new things?
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it's worth looking at because everything else is so saturated that maybe on Linux you're not so swamped in releases. I mean, on conventional platforms, so much stuff is being released that perhaps Linux would be a good thing to look at. Giles has got something to say.
I will only reveal to you, but experimental. They say the latest version of our engine I'm working on it can work on Linux. So, Manjaro for the moment. Manjaro Mate is the one that would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, what stopped us really is like that it did appear that there is not really much big market in there. So you can do a lot of work to make things work there. And then again, Linux. What Linux? There are so many different versions. And then again, finding a standard. And I personally like to do all my own. I don't like to start using tons of third-party libraries or get crazy with, but you need that version, but you need that thing, but you need STL, and then you need this. It's like, it's not where I want to go, because then you have so much stuff that you have to support, and I don't want to really get crazy. So it's like, yeah, if it were being one stable release, one stable version, and it could be something, but then you get into a territory where there is so many different variations, and yeah, like, I don't want to get mad to just get the basics working and then support this, support that, support whatever, because then all my life is spent supporting different things.
I don't know, but maybe it's a good place to go because there's everything else. Basically, if we choose to support a different platform, it's his headache. That's why he's moaning so much. I mean, from my point of view, I mean, everything else is swamped these days. If you release on PS4, it's swamped. If you release on PC, it's swamped. If you release on Switch, it's swamped. Maybe a market where it's not so swamped might be a good place to go. I really don't know. Anyway, I'm absolutely terrible at business. I only design games, so.
Okay, I take it there's no more questions. So there's Jeff, there's Giles from Llamasoft, from Wales, United Kingdom, the Brexit land, two happy guys. So
Bloody Brexit. Look, I must explain about Brexit. Most of us in the UK don't bloody want it. We think it's a stupid idea. We've got a stupid government that we can't get rid of. Boris Johnson is a big knob. And just making us look like complete and utter tools in front of the rest of Europe and the world. We hate it. We don't want it. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. I feel like I've been driven over a cliff. God help us. Please.
So, applause to Llamasoft. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So they will be around here, so you can catch these guys at any time,
Yeah.
like now, for autographs and so on.
We'll be here or we'll be up the hill.